I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on April 9th, 2025 at 7 p.m. I am Linda Lukowski, Chair of the School Committee. I want to welcome everyone here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners. Students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I wanted to remind everyone of the upcoming budget info sessions next Wednesday and Thursday and May 6th. More info on those can be found on the district website and social media. I also have a housekeeping item for the committee. We had previously scheduled a workshop for later this month with the UMass survey results, but there is a lot of data and the results to go through. I would like to ask the committee to push the review out to an evening in June so that the professor can join us to provide insights and context. In keeping with our usual Wednesdays, would you have available June 4th or 25th for this? So if you guys can look at that and email me, because I'll have to get a hold of Paul and Matt as well, okay? And I'll send this out to you as well, the two dates, to make sure that you guys can look at it. The next item is Student of the Month, and I'm going to hand this to Erin.
Student of the Month is one of the most favorite items on the agenda of the school committee. The Student of the Month program was established in 2019 by the school committee to honor exemplary students. Nominations are collected throughout the year from staff members at all 5 schools. Nominations are made through 5 categories: service to fellow students, teachers, or community, dedication, determination, and persistence in the face of obstacles, attitude towards learning, determination, high achievement in academics, athletics, or performing arts, significant improvement in academics, athletics, or performing arts. Selections are made by the chair of the school committee, the superintendent, and 1 member of the policy and advocacy subcommittee. Student of the Month is being awarded to a duo this month. Congratulations to Lucas Banesh and River Wynn, who were nominated by Megan Ober. Could both Lucas, River, and Miss Ober come up? And Miss Ober, can you tell us why you nominated Lucas and River?
Button. There we go. I'm going to adjust this. Okay. So one thing I do love about my job mostly is that I never know what each day will bring. So back in February, I received a pleasant but urgent sounding note from River Wynn requesting to meet with me about some Aspen concerns he and his friend Lucas Banesh had discovered. Aspen concerns are not an unusual part of my job, but the phrase security vulnerability certainly was. The following day, I tried to hold my poker face. Not very well. I'm pretty sure my jaw literally dropped multiple times, as Lucas and River patiently spent 90 minutes showing me the vast areas of Aspen that they had discovered they could access. As River appropriately described it, it was like pulling a thread on a sweater. All they had wanted to do was learn a little bit more about their class rank. In doing so, they discovered they could access much more. Once they realized they could access one piece of information, their innate need to problem solve and take things apart led them down quite a journey. It reminded me of any young engineer who can't help but take apart a device to see how it works. Suffice it to say, if there are any students I would feel comfortable with having access to my emergency contact, it would be Lucas and River, and they did. I promptly reached out to Aspen in all honesty, thinking I'd get a help ticket number and be waiting a while for a response, but I received a phone call immediately with a request to do a Zoom call with River and Lucas. They once again patiently explained to a screen of about 10 Aspen developers what they had discovered. and that they could access, what they could access at Triton could also be replicated at other schools that used Aspen. Once again, a lot of poker faces, though one of the reps appropriately said, "Well, this is terrifyingly awesome." They did nervously chuckle, though, when Lucas and River mentioned that they had discovered Aspen's demo school account filled with Lord of the Rings references. My favorite part of watching Lucas and River explain these vulnerabilities to both myself and the developers at Aspen was the way in which they did so as a team. Lucas would, with extraordinary ease and quickness, demonstrate the various programming functions and code that he could access, that he could use to access the data. River would then, in turn, explain the implications of what Lucas had just demonstrated, which was super helpful. It was a bit like a TED Talk meets Shark Tank meets Geek Squad. So spoiler alert, Aspen has resolved these vulnerabilities. Aspen has also now listed River and Lucas in their Security Champions Hall of Fame on their website. I'm still frustrated that Aspen hasn't responded to my strong and repeated suggestion that they offer Lucas and River a scholarship or at least a paid internship, a $100 Amazon gift card from Aspen, and tonight's award will have to do. So these are clearly two very clever and bright and curious young men. They are brilliant and persistent. Their innate love of learning alone should be commended. But what stood out to me most in this situation was their honesty and integrity. Lucas and River used tremendous discretion and knowing that they had access to information that they should not have. When they discovered a problem that could have a significant impact on us as a school and on a company that we use, they went through the appropriate channels to fix it. I should note that when River first walked into my office, he did ask for reassurance that they wouldn't be suspended.
Or sued.
Or sued. Thank you.
A kid who was sued by his school for something very similar.
Also true. So this is all public. We are not suing or suspending them. Okay, great. So anyway, I hope tonight is that reassurance. We're really proud of both of you and so grateful for your character and contributions to our community, not just in this scenario, but also in our classrooms and on our stage. And thank you for not sharing my cell phone number with your peers. Thank you both.
Did you get that in writing?
It's now photo op, right?
Nicely done.
I did not see it coming. White hats indeed.
Yes, incredible students we have here at Triton. The next item is oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee? Just state your name and the town you're from.
Hi, I'm
Isabella Carmody from Rowley. So I want to talk to you guys today about my civics action project, which my issue has to do with mental health in teenagers, and I want to talk about the teenagers in our community and their mental health. It is a significant integral component of health and well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationship, and shape the way we live. I believe mental health is a basic human right, and it is crucial to personal, community, and social economic development. A solution for helping teens with mental health in our community, I believe would be good, is to have a therapy dog at Triton High School. I have an experience with therapy dogs at Pine Grove Elementary. Miss LaPerriere, she brought in Tracker, and he was a joy to have there when I was a kid. I found an organization called Cares Incorporated that Pentucket Regional School actually used to get their therapy dogs. And their mission is to operate and maintain training and a placement program for canine assistant, which will also accomplish the purpose of AIMS assisting those persons with disabilities. I found that the professional therapy dog costs $6,267 per dog. And I found some funding options that we can get grants from New England Biolabs Grant, Triton Education Foundation, and Charlotte's Litter Therapy Dog Grant through the Charlotte Helen Bacon Foundation. And the option to be a handler would be open to anyone in the building who is willing to do that, because it's definitely a big responsibility. So we don't want to push that on anyone, but the dog would live with that person and they would take it to school, and yeah. I actually also have fact sheets, if that's okay to give you guys. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. You can just give them to me, and I'll hand them out to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains one donation tonight from the Triton Educational Foundation in the amount of $524.75 for Triton Middle School's Viking Den rugs. The consent agenda includes an overnight and out-of-state field trip request for Salisbury Elementary 4th grade to visit the Seacoast Science Center on May 30th, and Salisbury Elementary 6th grade to go on a whale watch June 3rd. Please also note that the DECA International's trip to Orlando, which previously received planning approval, has been canceled. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make the motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the student representative report. Student Representative Owen Silver is now going to update the committee.
So it was an exciting day yesterday, I think, for students across the district. But really, though, it is nice to break out of routine. And routine has been what it has been for students with MCAS and AP practice tests and the beginning of sports seasons. It's kind of been a in-between period where there hasn't been anything significant of note. And I don't think there's any major new changes within the high school or across the district that I've heard of. So,
Thank you, Owen. The next item is new business. Would any members like to raise additional items for inclusion on a future agenda? Seeing none. NES principal introduction. The superintendent is going to introduce the new principal for Newbury Elementary School.
Thank you. So I am thrilled tonight to have here with us, sitting in the front row, Patricia Hebert. We conducted a process, as you know. Beth Yando, the current principal of Newbury, notified us of her retirement back around the holidays. So we opened up a search, had an extensive interest. We had over 30 applicants, which is a very strong turnout. And through that process, there were, I think, 10 parents, 9 staff, and a panel of, I think there was 8 administrators. It's a rigorous process. First round is sitting for 3 hours, 1 hour each with each of those panels. We brought 3 candidates back for a second round that sat with a combined panel, and then from that process, only one finalist emerged, and that was Patricia. So she did complete an on-site last week? time is blurring at this point, and through feedback, through staff and families, supported the appointment. So as of last week, I did sign a contract. Patty will start effective July 1. And I'm excited because she's ready to work, and I know Beth is already working to prepare for Patty to transition well. So tonight was just to formally announce to you the appointment. It has been announced to the community, but we will begin that transition. So Patty comes to us most recently from Lynn. She started her teaching career, went south for a little bit, North Carolina and Florida for a few years, ended up back up here, has been in the Lynn Public Schools for 24 years now, has taught 1st through 8th grade, broad spectrum of teaching, was an assistant principal, then spent the bulk of her time for a decade at Druitt's Elementary. A year ago, March, I believe it was March, had the opportunity, was asked to move into the district office, into the central office, or I think in downtown we call it, in Lynn, and made that move. Obviously very skilled, and so she has been the currently sitting as the chief academic officer. But as she shared with us throughout the interview process and in follow-ups, that her love and her passion is certainly in a school with the kids, the teachers, and the families. And so I think any district administrator can attest to the fact that that is absolutely the hardest part of moving into the district office, is that separation on a daily basis. So we're thrilled to have her. I asked her to come tonight just for a quick introduction. I don't know if you want to say hello, Patty, if you want a stander or a sitter, whichever one you prefer.
Good evening, members of the school committee, Superintendent Forget, and the whole Triton community. I am absolutely thrilled to be here, excited to get started. I really appreciate the trust that you have in me, and I look forward to partnering with all of you, the staff, the families, the students, to continue fostering a positive and engaging school experience. So I am honored. Thank you. I'm excited to get to work.
Thank you, Patty. So just to confirm, the NES families and staff will start to hear from and see. Obviously, she has a full-time job through the end of June, and similar with Richard Poore, I promised the superintendents that we don't poach early. But I know that everyone's excited to have Patty start that transition. So I look forward to that, and then as of July, to fully take the helm. So I don't know if the school committee has any questions or anything.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Told you they were a nice bunch. Thank you for coming, Patty, and welcome.
And you'll have big shoes to fill.
In fairness to Patty, she heard that a lot. And I think that was, I would say, one of the most resounding kind of takeaways was Patty can fill those shoes, right? That someone who's able to come in, having spent a year and a half, a year and a third at that point as chief academic officer on the curriculum instruction and planning side, but also proven track record as principal. A seasoned principal was important to replace Beth. So again, welcome.
The next item is the math curriculum. With the committee's permission, I would like to take the math adoption out of order to respect the time of the educators who came here tonight for the site. Are there any objections? Dr. Anna Bates and the team are going to make a recommendation on a new math curriculum for Triton Secondary School students.
Thank you. So I'm going to give a brief overview of our review process, and then Kelly Buckley and Irene Thompson are here tonight to share a little bit more detail about our actual pilot and decision-making and how we came to this recommendation. So in 22-23, we had stage 1 of our mathematics curriculum review, in which we did a really deep dive into I think all data related to teaching and learning in mathematics, and out of that review process, we elected to explore new instructional materials for grades 7 through Algebra 2. That exploration took quite a while. We began with a team with math teachers, a special educator, as well as a math specialist and a program coordinator from the high school during last school year, so 23-24. And we cast a pretty wide net and began looking at all programs. We're really looking for one that carried through grade 7 up through Algebra 2 that either met expectations or partially met expectations through ed reports. We had determined we were going to use the Curate rubric, which is curriculum ratings by teachers. It's the Massachusetts specific review. And we were going to use that rubric, not necessarily the ratings that these programs had on it, because they haven't all been reviewed, but we were going to use that rubric to conduct our own review. So we looked at 13 different curricula at that point. We narrowed it down to 3 programs that we were really interested in learning more about, and had the publishers give us presentations on those. We were exploring resources. And from that, we identified 2 that we wanted to pilot during this school year, which included Envision and Big Ideas. So I'm going to turn it over now to Kelly. Kelly, you next?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we were told we had to wear black blazers. So before I begin, I would like to say what a great experience it was being part of this team from the start, from I believe it was 2022 when we convened this team and we were able to evaluate our curriculum and our resources. And then we got to explore other programs in search of one for us. And then we narrowed it down to the 2 pilots that we did this fall. And then we're here tonight with our recommendation. Working closely with 10 individuals with different personalities and different viewpoints might sometimes be problematic. However, this was not the case with this team. It was a very enjoyable experience. I felt like we collaborated well, we respected each other's opinions, we listened, and we shared. So in the end, with the support of Brian and Al and Patrick, and of course Anna, who is amazing, as you all know, who led the charge, we chose a program we can all stand behind. So I think that's pretty special, and we're really appreciative of it. All right, so to jump in where Anna left off, after much exploration, we identified 2 programs, Savvis and Big Ideas. 10 teachers, 4 from the middle school, 6 from the high school, participated in the pilots. Every student in the middle school was a participant, and in the high school, there were 11 sections, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, I believe.
Yes.
So although we began Savvis this fall, we made the choice to do Savvis and Big Ideas at the end of last year. But prior to going on summer break, the teachers requested that Savvis come in and do a training before the summer because they wanted to use their summer vacation to plan and prep so that they were prepared when the children came in the fall. So Savvis agreed to it. We had that training. They also met during the summer with their grade level teams or their subject area. And then we officially kicked it off during our August PD days with follow-up trainings in October. We had 2 October trainings, a November training, and peppered throughout the pilot, teachers were able to access Savvis. They would call them, email them, many times would jump on a Zoom call. A similar schedule ensued for Big Ideas, except we started in December, but very similarly, our teachers requested that we meet with Big Ideas before Christmas break. So again, so they could use that time to prep and plan. And then they had another, I think they had 2 more meetings in January, our final meeting in March, and again, peppered throughout the experience was phone calls, Zoom calls, and other communication. Not only did our teachers meet with the reps, they also met with each other. So they would meet with each other to reflect and talk about both pilots, see how it was going. They did this during planning blocks, after school. We meet monthly so that we would talk about it in our monthly collaboration meetings. And then we also created this document that we all shared. It was a list of every single unit that was piloted, every lesson. And so after most lessons, teachers would share out their thoughts, what they thought worked well, the strengths of the program, and any need areas or dislikes, I guess, things that could be better. Let's see, where are we? So at the conclusion of each pilot, teachers filled out a survey that rated each pilot according to a list of criteria. After the teachers completed that survey, Anna was nice enough to take all of the data, compile it into a nice, neat packet, and a couple weeks ago when we met as a whole team to decide which program we wanted to put forward, we looked at the data, analyzed it, had conversations, and it was decided unanimously that we wanted to go with Big Ideas. So, as I said earlier at the beginning, this experience was fun, but it was also very important to us, and every teacher took it very seriously. They devoted a lot of time, a lot of effort, energy, and a lot of heart went into the planning and the implementation of these pilots. But at the end of the process, we feel like it was all worth it because we unanimously agree on a curriculum that we feel is most in line with Triton's vision. We set out in the beginning to identify a program that would meet the diverse needs of our students through a balanced approach of conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and real-world application. And we feel we found it in Big Ideas. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Irene, who is going to share why we feel Big Ideas is the right fit for our community.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. As Anna and Kelly detailed, teachers have invested a vast amount of time and energy over the last couple of years to pilot both curriculums with fidelity. Their commitment to this process has been truly remarkable and speaks volumes about their dedication to providing the best possible education for our students. And as Kelly mentioned, I especially appreciate the experience of being able to work as a middle high school team, which you don't normally get to have most years, but because we've been working together so closely on this, that's been really nice. And it really couldn't have gone more smoothly, right? There weren't any hiccups, so very nice. And yes, it was clear to us that Big Ideas is the curriculum that stands out as the more accessible and more relatable option for our students. One of the key factors in this decision is the curriculum's design, which emphasizes clear, step-by-step explanations, engaging material that caters to the diverse range of learners that we have. The structure allows students to easily navigate through higher order mathematical concepts, enhance their learning experience, and foster a greater confidence in their abilities. Additionally, the curriculum incorporates interactive elements, visual aids, real-world problems and applications, and lots of videos to go with how it could relate to certain career fields, and in general, just making math more relatable and less intimidating. And while both Savvis and Big Ideas provided multiple levels of support, including differentiated instruction, which is important to meeting the diverse needs of our student body, the Big Ideas curriculum provides the flexibility to meet students where they are and help them progress at their own pace. And with students, teachers, and parents all reporting through that packet that Anna created, which was wonderful, all reporting a strong support for Big Ideas, it emerges as the best choice for our students. And it not only improves their understanding, enjoyment of math, but also ensures that students have an equal opportunity to succeed. And I appreciate your consideration of this important decision and look forward to the positive impact it will have. Are there any questions?
You talk about it's diverse for all students. Is this for the honors programs as well?
This would only be for the CP level. Yeah, I haven't found, and I do like looking at curriculums. I look at especially all the Pearson. It's really difficult to find a textbook that meets, a foundations level all the way through honors. There's just not there's not enough of that level of difficulty in these books in any of them that I've found. That's why most, like Pearson offers like an honors AP line. Most of them offer something separate for honors. And while, most teachers could use this and beef it up, but with any of them, the amount of like beefing up that you would have to do, it's kind of like, well, you would have to be a very seasoned teacher to do that.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Go ahead.
So you talked a little bit about having like the interactive feature with the videos and other items that would be available. So is the text or the curriculum going to be electronic or a textbook or both, or how would that work?
Both.
Both.
Yep, so here's a hard copy of the Algebra 1 textbook, but then each student and teacher would have access to their online format, which was also, we all kind of sampled different things from that. I would create guided notes that went with the slides. And the videos are more like kind of beginning at the chapter, like, showing like a career field that might use some of the math in that chapter. There's also problem sets that can be done online, giving students instant feedback as to whether they're right or wrong, which most publishers do provide now.
I also am curious, I know that we're doing a lot of work to line up the middle school and the high school schedules and have some continuity, some crossover when we need to have more advanced work for certain students. Would the middle school and the high school be using this same curriculum and following along with it so that the consistency's there?
Yes. Yeah, so the 8th grade algebra class will be using the Algebra 1 book, and so will the algebra classes at the high school. Algebra 1 honors, no, but, so the honors levels would be different.
Okay. And then my other question was, I noticed that we talk a lot about the algebra and geometry. Does this also go into calculus or any other subject matters? Like, does the curriculum that we're purchasing cover anything else?
No, we were trying to align with grades 7 through Algebra 2, which would be normally grade 11. So trying to make sure, because then after grade 11, you kind of have a lot of different options depending on where you're at in grade 11.
Does anybody have anything else?
You touched upon quickly the differentiation that this allowed. So looking at like our 4th, 5th incoming 6th grade students to 7th and above, do you think that provides a wide enough base so that depending on where they came from, they can help fill those gaps and move forward? Or would there have to be some supplemental work put in?
They do, that's what, both of them did a good job of having differentiated, and I'll let you speak to the middle school portion because I think it's slightly different, but they all have like a section of kind of review of, for the high school, it'd be review of like some middle school topics. So some resources there, and they also have separated out tier 1, 2, and 3 support for every single section, both again on paper, PDF that you can print out, or online.
And that was a major feature that we liked. It had the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and there's also an intervention piece that provides lots of resources for those students requiring intervention, whether it's just for one unit or throughout the year, they have that as well. And when you look through the resources that they give you, it's progressive. So every chapter, every unit, there is a preview. So it kind of getting ready for the chapter. And then once you're doing the activities, there are different entry points that you can start your students in. So it goes progressively, it gets progressively harder or challenging.
Thank you, because I know that's the biggest part when you're lesson planning and you see that to not have to do a ton of research outside of the curriculum you already have is a huge benefit, so thank you.
And that's what we liked about it. There's so much accessibility right at the, very easily accessible so that you don't have to go out and supplement, and where, especially at the high school and the middle school, where you're teaching 5 different math classes with differentiating in each one, it's nice to have such ease in accessing those resources and activities.
Do we do iReady for math?
We do iReady for Math.
So the differentiation that's in this new curriculum, it would work with iReady as well?
So we use iReady up through grade 8. There is a benchmark, a math benchmark within Big Ideas that we, just because of timing, have not used, but Kelly and I have talked about potentially piloting that benchmark at the end with a small group of students I don't want to oversize 8th grade is assessed quite a bit anyway, but maybe swapping that out for iReady with a group to see what kind of information we get from there, because it's a different platform and it's really hard to see what we're going to get from it until we have students who have experienced it. So I think they will work together.
And our hope is that if we're teaching to the standards, it shouldn't matter if we're assessing them through Big Ideas or iReady, if we're all doing what we should be doing and teaching this, which we all are, teaching to the standards, then that shouldn't be an issue.
Which I think it really speaks to the point of this whole process, which was trying to make sure we're all addressing the standards that should be addressed from 7 through Algebra 2.
So thank you for this. Very informative. I appreciate the format, especially of having math specialists here that are bringing the information and sort of the real review process. I have 2 questions. One of them is, is there any material available that's available in other languages? We have more students who write English is not their primary language, and I was just curious if there's any accessibility for those students.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
Yeah,
perfect.
I know there was like Spanish right off the
Spanish
bat
for
of like
sure.
PDFs, but there's so much to learn online. Because I'm pretty sure during one of the trainings, they said that you can, I know at least for the letter home for parents, each lesson you can send a letter home to parents, and you can put it in any language.
Wow.
I don't know about all the problems, but they're working on
several.
expanding it.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And my next question is, and maybe you were headed in this direction, was just implementation process for this?
So I'm already working on an implementation plan. I think something that's different about this process is that every teacher that piloted, or every teacher that's going to be implementing has fully participated in the pilot. Every classroom teacher. So we have to do different levels of support for English language learner teachers who might be in the classroom, or special educators in the classroom, instructional assistants, administrators. We will sort of target all of those areas and make sure we have sort of full support and professional development, but also the time set aside for grade level collaborations for Algebra 1 teachers from both schools to get together, to be really looking at what's going well and what support do we need. And we did this quite a bit throughout the pilot, and I think the teachers are used to saying, hey, here's something I'm struggling with right now, and we would respond to it. So we're going to keep that process going in a more structured way during the first year.
Thank you. And I guess the last question is always comes down to money. Can you please address that?
Yes and no. So I don't have, we were provided the materials for the pilot for free, given that we implement. So we're still so we're working right now to find out what that cost is going to be. I did budget for a high watermark cost, which is covered in this fiscal year budget. So that I believe for 6 years of licenses plus textbooks, it was $87,000. I don't think we're going to need all of the textbooks that were included in that quote, because we are not giving every individual a textbook. We're going to have class sets of the textbooks, and everybody will have online access. So it will be no higher than that. Certainly lower, still waiting patiently. They assured me I would have it by this evening, but I still don't have the quote yet.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I want to thank the committee as well as you two for, I know that this was probably multiple years that you were evaluating this. And I want to thank you for your patience and everything that you've done to come up with this.
Thank you.
Thanks. It was fun.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the Big Ideas Mathematics curriculum as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Is it premature to accept it without knowing what the cost is?
I mean, this is just my take on it, but generally, if it's budgeted for and we believe that it's, something that's going to be fine, then we're usually, we'll accept it at that point. And in the past, when we've had issues, we've worked with publishers to break it up over multiple years or something like that to phase so that the upfront cost isn't as much when needed.
Is that an option for phased, if you needed to?
Yeah, we could certainly phase something. We could, yes, phase it in. They will be very willing to work with us. What some publishers won't do is split the cost of that over multiple fiscal years. But we could certainly do like middle school and then, or we could do up through Algebra 1 and then the higher ones. I don't think that's going to be, I don't think the cost is going to be a challenge here, given that this was the higher of the two that we piloted. So that's what I included in last year's budget, this year's budget.
So if I can just add, I know the Finance Subcommittee has spent some quality time fretting about the current year budget. So gentleman to my right, new face, same seat, same stressed look. So we are still working that through. The challenge is we know this budget on paper is already overspent for the year, and so Dave is working feverishly, we're working feverishly, principals are working feverishly to make sure that we're not spending any dollars we don't have to spend. The challenge here is that this is budgeted for this year. It's not budgeted for next year, which means if we kick this can down the road without spending some money, whether it's broken up or phased or whatever, we have to refigure this out. So the priority is, I think we'd be able to come back to you in May with a clearer plan of exactly what this looks like. But I do think it's something that we have to figure out how to at least start within the fiscal year, even with the challenges we're currently facing trying to land this plane.
Just another question. Would this be, how many years would this be budgeted for? I mean, how many years after, do you have to buy licenses every year?
No, so, well, if the 87,000 is 6 years of licenses.
Okay.
I did request quotes for 1 year, for 2 years. It doesn't reduce the cost significantly because the cost is actually in the textbook, not the platform. So it may be like a $10,000 reduction to do a 2-year rather than a 6-year.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Can I ask one more question? And a just online platform to start is not an option without purchasing the text up front?
I suppose we could, although we already have the texts here. I don't know that they would, and we've used the text as part of the pilot. I don't know that they would let us ship them back for full and not pay for them.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm willing to, if that's what needs to happen to get these resources sort of moving into the classrooms, we can look at any option.
Programmatically looking to the three of you as experts, is that a viable option, or are the textbooks really important to have? Sorry, it was loud when I hit the table.
Most to all of the high school teachers don't feel like the textbook is necessary, so that's why we were saying we just need class set.
Okay.
But really, realistically, we don't need that. There is the case where like some students and their parents might request to have a hard copy to bring home. So having some on hand, because so we already considered like just having like 15 in each room, depending on who's teaching what, but just having a class set. We actually don't have that many. They didn't send us that. Like maybe they sent us about 60 of each at the high school.
Yep.
So there's really not a ton, and, we're fine with whatever savings that can be done, and we're fine with not having a hard copy or just a small set.
And just to clarify about the online versus the textbook, if we were to not have the hard copy textbooks, that doesn't mean that students are learning math from a computer or with a screen in front of them. That a lot of the teachers are using the curriculum materials and then printing them, making guided notes. So they're still doing math work on paper, even though the instructional resource is online.
I would just add that I would feel better if we had some textbooks, because we've focused on differentiation, and I think for some students, I don't personally understand the complete difference, but I know that there are some students that take the book home, can be on the book, and it's a lot easier for a multitude of reasons. So just to make sure we have some for our learners that might need like a hard copy, while also saving money.
So we can come back in May
Yeah,
with
it
a
would
clear.
cause me pause if we just didn't have any to send home, because I know there's a set of learners out there that will need a textbook, or maybe they require tutoring and would need to bring it home. It would ease a lot of minds, I think, to know there's access there.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Next item is committee reorganization planning. The school committee policies require that the committee reorganizes its offices at the first meeting after the May election, and they also dictate what experience a member should have to serve in certain positions. As a reminder, the secretary has to have held elected office for at least 1 year, and the vice chair and the chair for at least 2 years. The chair also has to have served as the chair or vice chair of a public body previously, which in our cases are most often in our subcommittees, and all 3 positions require good communication skills. In a tradition started years ago, we have gone around the table at the meeting prior to the election and had each member state what positions they are eligible for and what positions they are willing to serve in. This gives everyone a basis to consider who they might nominate or support in each officer position before our May meeting. I would like to start with the far end of the table and work our way around.
Can I start, actually?
Sure, you can start.
So Polly's is not here, and Matt Landers is not here. I hope they're watching online, because I'd like to nominate them. We think, you like typing, right? You're good?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, great, done. I'm just kidding.
Well, I was just going to say that the 3 of you are doing an amazing job, and to have the 3 of you remain in those positions would be awesome. However, I would like to say that I am eligible for secretary or vice president. I am not eligible, not vice president, vice chair. I'm not eligible for chair because I have not been a chair on any subcommittee yet, or a vice chair. And you want to know if I'll serve, and I'll serve as needed but like I said, you're doing an amazing job.
So I'm not even sure if I'm eligible really for anything, maybe for secretary, but I'm very happy with what the 3 of you are doing and happy to support the 3 of you.
Should I count that as a no when we come back to this next month?
No, thank you.
Okay, just checking.
Technically, I'm eligible for all the things. However, I couldn't even dream of filling the shoes of the 3 of you. So I support you wholeheartedly. And Narissa, I know you have to have a discussion with your husband, but I'm going to, is it vice chair okay, just not chair?
Yes.
Oh, then I am in full support of this.
Promise never chair.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
To run again.
Yeah, so this can stay permanently. And I appreciate all 3 of you.
So that's a no on all three, am I? I will do whatever is necessary. Okay.
I am technically eligible for all three of these, and I will serve if called. I will note that earlier today I said my next available minute is in 2 weeks, so it's kind of where my life is at right now.
I think that's a no.
Paul Lees and Matt said yes. Okay.
So I actually threw Matt under the bus already for building committee chair. So he might not be too happy if we throw him under the bus for main committee chair as well, just saying that. So yeah, I did promise my husband if my family that if I ran again, I would not be chair. So I am eligible for everything, but only would serve as vice chair, or, I mean, I have no desire to bump Paul out, but if I had to be secretary, I could take some notes.
I believe technically I'd be eligible for it, and I'm happy to continue on as secretary. I don't know that it would behoove the committee to have me anywhere else, all things considered.
I'm eligible for all three as well. Wherever the committee would like me to be. I will be the vice chair. Nah, I'm just kidding.
I'll send my husband to have conversation with you.
With my husband? But whatever the committee needs me to do, I'm available to do whatever's necessary. Unless we bump it to Brian. Brian, you're the chair. Okay?
Do you want to just check in with those two via email so that when we come back, we have a full, okay.
The next item is the DCC update. The last DCC meeting was in Salisbury. Since most of the discussion was budget-related, has already been relayed in prior meetings. The next meeting would have been tomorrow, April 10th, but since there have been no new developments or information, and we have the meetings next week, that meeting was canceled for tomorrow. The next item is the FY26 budget discussion next steps. While the budget has been voted, this year leaves more uncertainty than most other years. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent to set us up for additional discussion on the budget.
So the question for you tonight, normally we would be having a discussion in April, but because of the fact that we have two towns that have overrides on the docket, we have one town that has signaled that they will approve the budget, that it's included in the warrant, fully funded. We need to come back to you. Again, the May meeting gets bumped out an extra week, so you don't meet again until May 21st, which is the week after the election, which is also the date of the override. So my request of you tonight is guidance and hopefully setting a target for what additional funding would be cut, what you would like to see for cuts, should the overrides not pass, or I should say, should we not have an approved budget by whatever mechanism that happens if we do not gain 2 of 3 town approvals. We might know that as soon as May 13th. We would definitely know that by May 19th, which means on May 21st to keep the ball rolling. If the budget is not passed, you know we move forward, you reconsider the budget, recertify it to the towns. They have 45 days to hold another meeting. If they don't hold a meeting, it's a default yes. What we want to avoid at May 21st, that 45 days actually takes us into the new fiscal year. We want to avoid not doing that more than once, if that's the case, and get ourselves into a 1/12 budget situation where the department steps in and starts talking to us about setting a budget for us. So that's my request, is to give us some guidance on what that number is that you would want to see the budget reduced by if we don't get 2 of 3 town approvals. I think it's important for us to have that discussion so that we can come back to you on May 21st with a revised budget. And I think it's also helpful as we're going through the next, is it 5 weeks from yesterday, is the override vote. As we move toward that, being able to say, this will be the outcome if the overrides do not pass, or if 2 of the 3 towns do not pass. Yeah.
I'm a little fearful that we start talking about numbers before we know the outcome of the vote, because if we start talking numbers and people think that we can just change stuff, why would we not be going lower to begin with? Don't want to start kicking that can out there. Is there any way that we could have like an emergency meeting put on so that we could have that discussion, even if it was over Zoom or something, once the election's taken place, or once we come into a situation where we're not going to make it? So if, I know that the sequence of events, we've got ballot votes and we've got town meetings and such that need to take place, but if we see that this is not going to happen, that we then get a meeting on calendar and have the discussion then to be able to be ready for the school committee meeting on the 21st. Because I'm afraid that the public's going to assume that because if we're sitting here talking about additional things that we're willing to, or amounts that we would like to see cut, that why would we have not done that in the first place?
I guess my quick response would be, we still have a $350,000 deficit to close in the approved budget. If the overrides pass, if 2 of 3 towns pass our budget, there's some signals that maybe we'll see a little more state aid, and maybe we close that without, again, I believe we can close that without any personnel cuts. But beyond that, I mean, if we're talking about additional reductions to the budget, we're talking about staffing, right? We're talking about direct classroom implications, whether that's teachers or supports. So I don't like the idea of causing anyone else fear. I also worry that people need to know what's going to happen if the override does not pass. So that's my concern, is being able to tell that story.
I think, too, I'd have to go back and check bylaws, but I think we're going to be very hard up against a 45-day window. And our budget year ends June 30th. So I'd have that concern as well. Like, we need to have a tiny bit of time in there, and I think the only way to do that is prior to at least the ballot vote. Maybe we could schedule another meeting like the end of April or something like that if we had to, but Brian has to have a chance to notify people. We have to have a chance to have a discussion, because unless you want to make a number, have Brian back of a napkin decide what it's going to look like for cuts, like what that would actually be, and vote that all on the same night. I don't see how we make that work.
I think earlier in the budget process, I had the same mind as you, Erin. I think I stated it, like I didn't, because I hate doing that to human beings. At this point, it is like personnel. But looking at how close we are and the possibility of going to a 1/12 budget is scary. But also, in everything that Narissa just said, we have to start notifying people if that's a possibility. So it's already, first week April's already gone. And we only have like 6 weeks before those, and we have no power over those votes. So we have to start making at least some guidance decisions. And I agree with you wholeheartedly earlier. I would have said we can wait, but I don't know if waiting actually helps anybody. That's my only concern on that upside.
45 days after our next meeting is July 5th, right? So we would already be into 1/12 zone if we were, I mean, I don't know what the town's wiggle room is on that, but we're into July in that window.
So we can't, you can't take action until May 19th unless both Newbury and Rowley fail, right? We'll know on the 13th if both overrides fail on the 13th. So between the 13th and the 19th, we're going to know, which means we need to, Brian's a personal opinion, we need to be able to vote a new budget on May 21st, which, like you said, puts us out into the new year. However, we'll know, right? We'll know well before June 30th at that point if a town is planning on holding a meeting, or if we know they're not scheduling it, we know it's just expiring a 45-day clock. And if it hasn't been scheduled, we know it'll be a yes. So yes, it puts us in. I wouldn't want to go much past May 21st for sure. So I guess depending on what happens on the 13th, we could know and maybe jump a meeting in there. Yeah.
I should have added too, I think the 45-day is publicizing date and time. I don't think there actually has to be a warrant posted until later. I know the mailed warrants in Rowley, which I think is the farthest whatever out, is, I want to say it's 2 or 3 weeks, but they have to have notice provided before those warrants get mailed. We mailed to every household. I know Caitlin's looking at me funny because Salisbury does not do this. Yeah, so Rowley, you actually get, per bylaws, you have to get your, you get your warrant in the mail. It's like a big folded, yeah. No, I know you don't, yeah. Yeah, it's literally like they just 8.5 by 11, print it, double-sided, fold it in half, slap the postal code on the front, and it comes in our mailboxes. Yes. Yes, yeah.
And it's 45 days from the certification. So if we met on the 21st, if the budget's approved, we certainly would align that with Kevin as our treasurer to be able to make sure we're getting those, and we will drive around and place them in the hands of the town clerk. So it's really the 22nd is when that clock would tick. So we're to July 6th, 7th if we count the holiday.
So we have to give Brian a number.
I should clarify, you don't have to, right? I mean, there's no legal requirement that there's a number now. I think if we're talking, I can't imagine that the question next week in those information sessions isn't going to come up. So what if the override doesn't pass? What does that mean? I would love to at least be able to say, here's what the committee has talked about. Another $10 million in cuts. I'm just going to use crazy numbers to not put anything out there that sounds reasonable, right? Like to be able to say, and that would mean we're talking about 3 positions, 4 positions, 5 positions. We really don't have anything other than classroom, directly classroom impacting positions. And we can do that without, I think, the kind of general consensus I'm not hearing over there that we've talked about is not getting the fear factor out too much, too early. So I think we could talk about a number without talking about a specific position, but I still think that's helpful. I think that will be an answer we have to be able to have something to say next week.
Because that's my biggest concern is why are these meetings next week if we're going to give you a number, is just how do I go out there next week and talk to people and try to sell the budget the way it is that we really need when we're sitting here talking about what the next step is going to be. I mean, how detailed do we need to be, specific positions, just a number figure? I'm thinking about some of these people that are going to show up or maybe do tune into this meeting that see us sitting here talking about this. They're like, well, they're talking about the next the next cuts? Why are they going to come out and sit there and listen to us next week?
Well, the thing is number one, we want people to go out to vote because it's very important that they vote in their towns. Because however they vote is what their opinion is. We, as a committee, don't want to wait until the two towns have failed there, and then to be scurrying around trying to, so we have to think of next steps, hoping that we don't need those next steps, but we as a committee have to make sure that we're ready to go because that clock
I do
starts.
understand that, but I think of some of these people sitting here looking at this, they're just like, well, here we go, I don't know.
And I think, just as I was listening to you, Kelly, this is different than like the public hearing, right? Here's what we're proposing. Please come give us your thoughts. Next week, you now have an approved budget that you believe in, right? There's a lot of people that said it should have been lower. You stuck to it. This is the number. This is now sharing information about that. It's not advocating. It's not getting into gray territory of override, right? This is about sharing information about what it means. And if the override passes, then the towns can speak to that, right? That was part of the idea of having town officials with us. The school committee approved this budget. Here's why we came up with this number. If it doesn't pass, then this is what will happen. So it's only to answer that question. If it doesn't pass, what will happen? And right, maybe even just a figure, even if I'm not in any way proposing that I come into those meetings with a cut list. That is not the intention, nor it would be something, if you asked me to do that, I would push back pretty hard. So this is literally about information, because that's the goal is, this is the situation, here's a yes, here's a no, here's what happens on, after May 13th, depending on what the outcome is. So maybe it is just a round figure, right? And then we can say, right, that's 5 positions, 10 positions, roughly speaking. And right, that we could have miracles.
Yeah.
A crazy amount of state aid could come in. I know, right? Stranger things have happened.
So
Dave doesn't look
I just,
hopeful.
it's when you say a figure, but also I think maybe if there's going to be a figure, I think that maybe there needs to be something about, how many positions that looks like. Because a figure to some people who aren't in our shoes in education like myself have no idea what that means. So
Because one of our charges is the budget. And so, like Brian said, we voted the budget that we believe we need. It's not what we want, it's what we have to have. Excuse me, Paul. However, that's one of the charges, and we have to be ready if the two towns fail their overrides. And that was my whole point with having a joint info session, is so that it's up to the people of those towns to decide what it is that they want. If they vote no, then this side of the town you don't get, and if you vote no, possibly some other things happen at the school. You're putting it to the towns for them to make a decision. And I know none of us like the situation. I said, but this is what we've been charged with. And I don't want to go to any round number, absolutely not. I want to stay right where we are. However, it's up to the towns to decide what we're going to do, and we have to be ready. I just don't want us to be scrambling, trying to, and not having
understand that. Yeah,
the full amount of time.
I just worry about the seed being
Absolutely.
planted. That's all.
I was going to say, I do think, just based on the questions that are coming in right now, I mean, I'm sure you're all having the supermarket and side of the baseball, soccer, whatever field conversations, but I feel like a lot of them are logistical. I suspect that's what we're going to hear a lot about next week, is it's people trying to understand the process. So if this town passes, but this town fails, what happens? What happens if this particular vote passes in town, but the other vote fails? Like, they're trying to understand that. I got a lot lately. Can I vote remotely at town meeting? No, you gotta like make a plan if you want to come to town meeting because you need to physically be there, right? And that is, you can't send someone to proxy vote for you, you can't Zoom in, you have to actually be there. So I suspect that those conversations and then conversations about sort of what's been cut already, just because there's been inaccurate information that's been floated already, saying that we've, added FTEs, for instance, right? Or that we have 10 students in our average classroom. Those types of things that, I suspect that it may even be people saying, I know this is not true, but can you tell me the right number, I think, in some cases. Like there are people that want correct information out there, but they don't even know what the correct information is. So I suspect we'll have some folks that come in and ask that, and other people who come and say, why do you have 10 kids in your classroom? And we'll be able to say, we don't. Most of our classrooms have quite a few more than that in there. So, I don't know, my personal take on the number, it's super hard to, I think, figure this out. I think you have to get, I don't know where, right, I'm assuming, hoping, right, that with Salisbury is having said that they'll back that there'll be a yes at town meeting, and that will be one yes, so we need at least a second yes. Newbury has the smaller override. I don't know what moves them out of sort of override territory if one override fails, but I think, I would hope that if we dropped somewhere in the realm of like 400 to 450, that's going to bring them down like 100 to 125, I believe, on their assessment, if I did the math right. And I would hope that that would get them to a point that they could, on a single vote at least, try to pass.
Marissa, can I ask you a question? When you say you said 450?
Yeah, like 400.
Is that,
or 450, yeah.
is it total with the 350? Or so now we're
It's an
looking at
additional
7.
beyond.
So we're looking at 7 to 800,000 in cuts?
Yeah,
Because we have the
unfortunately.
350 unidentified, and you're saying another, because that was actually my initial question is, I cannot remember off the top of my head the number Newbury needed to avoid an override, and I don't think they ever provided one.
No.
But that would be kind of my question, if we could ferret out the number. Salisbury gave us a very firm number, like, we are comfortable here. Can you get here, meet us here? Rowley also provided a number, but I'm not missing it. Did Newbury provide a number to us?
Raleigh technically didn't provide us a number, which I think is
I think they
part of
just-
the confusion.
I thought they just said nothing.
They just said no.
Yeah, but I
They
think
s- they said,
nothing more than $1 of this current budget we're sitting in.
no,
Afford this one.
yeah, so they had said that even if we didn't increase $1 from fiscal year '25, so it would only go up to 247,000, that the state calculation increased them, that they would need an override at that point. That
I'll
was,
amend my statement. So they just said
so
no.
it's somewhere lower than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Where that number sits, I don't know.
Okay, so Rowley, they have a stance, it's no. I don't think Newbury provided us a ballpark number where they were comfortable.
No, and if I'm correct about their override, it's also to include Whittier.
It is called an educational override,
Right, so
correct?
it's not necessarily that we could look at that and suss out which part was ours.
So I'll go off of,
It's Whittier and Essex that they were.
So if we drop a 350, reduces Newbury by about 100,000. Brings Rowley to about, I think, 855, if I remember correctly when I did that math. And it brings Salisbury to about 5 and change.
so now I have to ask that's a lot of,
Make sure that was, you didn't, that was not a
That's-
proposal?
No,
That was a number I was
I'm just
throwing
thinking
out.
out the number. So you're looking at 350 in unidentified cuts currently, plus another 350 to
Doubling
4. So you're looking at 750-ish.
700, yeah. And that was where I came up with that number, was to
Okay.
look at what that would do if we doubled what was there on paper.
Okay.
And it dropped Newbury almost an even 100,000.
Okay.
Taking into account benefits packages as well as unemployment payments and things like that, an FTE cut on average is about 60,000 if that's from teacher contract, or a little bit more.
If we're making the assumption that someone is being eliminated, right, like a position that exists is being riffed or non-renewed, general 50 to 60,000 in total savings if you assume kind of middle of the pack, master's salary with a benefits package, offsetting for unemployment because we're self-insured, if you will, we pay as you go. There are a number of retirements. We generally don't include savings for retirements as a budgeting mechanism because oftentimes we're replacing someone who is maybe lower on the pay scale, but when a retiree goes out at age 57, 58, they stay on our full benefit package until age 65. So we're adding a whole other benefit package, which tends to offset any real savings. A full benefit package on our renewal, what we've been looking at is $24,000 per person. So normally 50, 60,000 at best. With the retirees that we haven't assumed, if we're eliminating that position, we save the full salary of that person who's retiring. So we do have a number of retirements that you've seen you haven't seen a list yet, but you've seen them kind of dribbling in on the personnel reports over the last few months. A couple others that I expect. So I think that if we can remove, right, and not to say that it would happen at the elementary, but at the elementary level, when you're talking about 1 through 6 licensed educators, and there's 25 of them and one is retiring, there might be a few shifts around, but everyone's still teaching in their license, and the worst outcome there is that someone's teaching a different grade level than they taught last year. It's a little different at the high school when you're specialized, when you're a math teacher or an English teacher. So at 350, if it's the just straight math and it's not a clean retirement who's not replaced, a retiree who's not replaced, you're talking at 6 people, 7 people. Maybe with retirements, that comes down to 3 or 4. You've already said it with your eyes, so you might as well ask the question.
So again, it's just pushing people to go out and vote.
I don't know if we have 5 to 7 staff positions that could, I'm just like thinking straight, like not anyone, like across the district. I think if we had 5 to 7 positions that could be eliminated or have someone retire and not be brought back. So I just want to put that it would have happened already. So is there like no other?
So I guess that's part of the point, right? Part of this messaging is, look, if
just
this
wanna say
override
this.
doesn't pass, and again, this isn't about advocating for an override, and I think I need to change my language to, if we don't get 2 of 3 approvals by whatever mechanism, if this budget isn't passed, this is where we have no choice but to
I
go.
just want to state that, like, this
Absolutely.
This is,
It is
5 to 7.
impactful cuts.
This is
Or-
a huge,
Right, things change, and I don't want people to accuse us, right? Sometimes there are revenues that change, and state level, there's more motivation around Chapter 70 and circuit breaker changes. So maybe more money materializes. We certainly can't count on that right now, and probably, you don't finalize the budget until July these days. So, I mean, we're ways down the road before that becomes a reality. So you will all have to make a decision as a committee before we know about those numbers. if we have to reduce further.
I will say that if the math, I'm going to trust the math that Brian and Narissa did, and if that brings down Newberry's calculation, 100,000 to somewhere where they might be able to pass it if it does not pass originally, then that would, the 350 to 400,000 in additional cuts, I would agree to, but I will state that that's really impactful. That will make a large difference across the district.
So I can say, like, the math is good. The question, none of us know the number, right? So that's the piece that I can't say.
No, I'm just going off
Right,
of,
yeah.
like, I'm going to, if you say that number equals that assessment change, then yes. But
And let's just say, none of us
yeah, it's not
like it.
not good. It's impactful.
So just so I can speak factually, so currently, the assessments to member communities are an increase of $533,458 to Newbury. They're a 4.44% increase. Rowley is an increase of $949,036. They're a 7.1% increase. Salisbury is $651,062 for a 4.09% increase. That's the final budget you approved. If we drop it by, wow, even without glasses, I can't. That takes Newbury down to 432,239, a 3.6% increase. Rowley down to 833,764, or a 6.24% increase. And Salisbury to 517,553 for a 3.25% increase. So that takes that would, and again, let's not, that this doesn't, this is a would, this is a hypothetical, take your overall budget increase to 3.75% and the overall net increase to member communities of 4.3%.
So I guess my only follow-up thing would be, as you have to come to the point of modeling, my preference would be to look at identifying sort of individual spots you can hit rather than wiping out a whole program. I just feel with the level of, especially the level of chronic absenteeism that we've been seeing lately, we know that programs are often what brings the kids into the school buildings to get the academics. And as sometimes tempting as or not tempting, I don't even want to use that word, but as it's easier, I guess, in a way, to say, here's the lump sum, you're done, right? But I don't think that's an approach I want to take, because I think it's going to compound anything we do is going to compound some of the issues that we're already seeing, right? Choice is going to be affected, right? That's going to affect our budget, right? Charter probably we're going to see, and that's going to affect our budget. Larger class sizes are going to affect academics, but you always have to choose something to prioritize. Like, even in the worst situations, you have to choose where your priorities are. And my priority, I think, would be to sort of do a little here and a little there, rather than wiping out one chunk.
I agree. No matter what is done, it's going to affect something.
So just to clarify for tonight, I'm not asking to identify cuts.
No.
It's just the figure, right, a figure so that we can speak in an informed fashion next week. Not calling names, not even talking positions, but just in general terms, to Paul's question, could be, if it's assuming 50, 60,000 per staff member, we're talking about 7 people. If it's retirees, it's less than that. Just so we can talk in those figures. And I think it's important, part of the purpose of, I know, our motivation in these meetings these joint information sessions with the towns next week, is that we need to work together with the towns, right? Rowley needs this override for everything. This is not just about the schools. Newbury, it's a little different situation, but even still, if we are saying we are the schools for our member towns, then when they are needing an operating override, we need to be standing with them, giving them information so that we can collectively get what needs to happen done. So.
It takes a village, and we need, I always stress that the community and the schools have to work together. We need each other. And us accusing them or them accusing us, it's not going to help our community.
I just wanted to make one more point, and that was just that, we're 3 regional school districts essentially that are serving our town, right? But we all have the 2/3 requirement. It's far more likely, I think, at this point that Whittier and Essex Tech Essex Tech will get passed. Whittier will more likely than Triton get passed, right? So in that situation where Newbury and Rowley have those numbers included in their overrides as well, it's likely that it's only Triton that's going to be having to make a change, or even able to make a change. So I just think that's no knock on anyone or anything. It's just a reality of the matter that we just have to think about, like, when you go back to the drawing board, the give is going to have to be in our budget.
I know we don't like it, but anybody have any other questions? Or I won't say concerns, because we all have concerns.
I think just to sort of follow up Caitlin's point from earlier, there's not a lot of give in the budget, in part because over last FY25 and this budget that we voted last month, we have level services as a wiggly line, but come down over $1 million on level services. So we are cutting where we don't want to already. So
I'll just say, for those of us who have been around longer too, it goes way far back than that, right? I remember the conversations about putting out athletic fees, and, like, we were putting it back on the burdens of our students, right? To individually support their education rather than it being the community sort of shouldering of everything that our kids have access to. And I think, I don't know when that started, but before me, I was 2015. It probably we went into hold harmless in 2011. So my guess is it goes back as far as that, but it was already in.
User fees were put in when I was in school.
There you go.
So yes, I remember being a student coming to speak at public comment.
I think they went, though. I'm going to go back to Dave Vertolino, because I graduated in 1995 when you were auditing the district. Sorry about this.
Boy, that's...
But my freshman year, we actually, it would have been your junior year, I think, right? We did not have a marching band that competed that year, and our marching band was enormous, and we were only allowed to exhibit that year because we could not pay the fees. Yep. And I believe that the user fees came in to cover that, and I think they went back out again because the Education Reform Act of 1993 then put an infusion of cash into the district. That carried us for a while, and then when we went into hold harmless in 2011, oh, you don't know the rabbit holes I go down.
And inevitably, it's because the state has been holding up their side of the budget.
I'm here.
We've been cutting.
Sorry about that, Dave.
We've been cutting since 2008.
Yes.
Right? We cut positions, we put them back, we cut a bunch, we put up one back. We cut a few, we put 3 back.
In 2008, that's when a bunch of our students went to Ipswich.
Yeah. 18 of them, I believe, in one grade.
Yep.
Yeah, when they came off our school choice rolls, that made a big difference because there were I think it was 18, right, Brian? It might be 17, somewhere in there.
I like this trip down
Yeah.
Sorry. No, this was 2008. They graduated out, so they went over there in elementary schools. Yeah, and they went all the way up and then graduated off our choice rolls just a few years ago.
That was my first year on the school committee.
Yeah, but it's showing a good point that if we have to make additional cuts, that we don't just lose people and bodies that are educating our youth, we're losing families to the district and then compounding the issue by having to make payments to other districts that our children are going to, that should be going to Triton. So it's actually a pretty decent thing to be talking about right now when we're talking about the impact of having to make additional cuts and what people don't understand what's going to happen if we have to do that. If we don't have the community supporting the school, with, the school supporting the community, we need to make sure that we're working together. Otherwise, we lose more than just funding. We lose families. We lose the commitment. We lose the camaraderie. We lose a whole slew of things when we refuse to fund the school.
But it's, even losing services in towns, it hurts our kids too. And again, it's the state not holding up their part of it. However, Narissa has some good news.
Dave said I shouldn't celebrate yet, though.
I know, but it should be mentioned of,
Oh, you Sorry.
it should be mentioned of how hard our legislators are working for us.
Yeah. So I think, the email came out earlier this afternoon that the House passed the supplemental budget bill, and included in there is 100% regional transportation.
First time ever.
Yes. First time ever. Yep. They got close in 1984. You want to go down that rabbit hole?
But again, I just want to mention how hard our state representatives are fighting for
Yes.
education.
And it would include 75% circuit breaker transportation reimbursement, not only for this year, fiscal year 25, but it would include it for fiscal year 26 too. So this still has to pass in the Senate. It is not done deals, and it's not going to drop our budget to the point that anybody's going to avoid going to these votes. But I think it's something to be said that these are, I would call them historic measures for the average district, right? This is touching every school district that's out there. This isn't just the Student Opportunity Act, which, as someone pointed out at the Amherst Ways and Means hearing, I believe that, I think it's 58 districts are getting 90% of the funding increase this year. I believe that was the number given. I'd have to look back at it. But it is a relatively small number of districts, and these are things that could help every district that's out there.
So thank you to our legislators. Okay.
And I just want to note, like Dave said to me, it's not a done deal yet. And yes, it is not a done deal yet.
You said it was just the House.
Yes, it is just the House.
Bill has been filed, both sides, just like you have here. You have 3 members that need to come together. You have 2 houses and a governor that all need to agree.
Yes.
We can be more confident in the circuit breaker transportation reimbursement than the regional transportation, right? That is circuit breaker, again, just setting that has always been a challenge, as one of 60-ish academic regions. It's not widely understood the need for it. So the circuit breaker is still a significant amount of money that we've already assumed in the budget, and we assumed a little low, so we'll get an updated quote or calculation of what that would mean for both the current year as well as next year.
overall, it's actually better for us than regional transportation would be, going to 100%.
Yeah, if we got 100% regional transportation, we would net about $64,000 more than we assumed this year. Not a huge number.
It's a teacher.
It's absolutely.
I was just going to say that.
Well, it's extra revenue, so it would just go to E&D.
It's a math curriculum.
Which is also not a bad thing.
Okay, the next item is the SOA plan update. Dr. Anna Bates, the Director of Curriculum.
Can I just ask, I don't know that I actually heard. Nice try. So I guess it's just a target. I think I heard you, Caitlin, I don't want to put words in your mouth. That figure around 350 felt like a target. I stole that figure from yours, yes. So is that, I mean, and again, I want to make sure that I'm not, I mean, if we're answering questions next week on the information session, is it fair to say the committee is talking about another, there is no hard number that the towns have given to us, so the committee doesn't have a hard number, but we're talking 300, 350,000, and if it's in that vicinity, we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 staff members. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more like 350 to 4, probably, not 3 to 350, but I just.
Trying to get that number down.
I know, I hear you, me too.
He's pushing the window down.
And maybe that could change with more, right, more insights from the town, allow you to get a little more exact on that, but I just feel like it's got to be somewhere in the realm of 100 to 125 for Newbury, and that's where that is.
Okay. I also want to confirm with Patty that you already signed a contract, so just saying.
And you still have big shoes to fill. Dr. Anna Bates?
Forgive you. So this evening, I'd like to give you an update, a progress update on the Student Opportunity Act plan that you approved last spring. So that plan identified students with low income and students with disabilities as two different student groups that we really wanted to target our efforts for improvement. And 3 ways that we were going to do that were through engaging in a inclusive curriculum adoption process, which was the math curriculum, so I'm not going to go into detail about that. Supporting the curriculum implementation of K through 8 ELA with CKLA in K through 5 and EL education in 6 through 8. And then also the implementation of collaborative teaching primarily at Salisbury Elementary. So within this update, you'll see sort of the variety of activities that have taken place under each one of those. You've already heard about math. In writing, we've continued working with a consultant who we were initially paired with through the Implementing High Quality Instructional Materials Grant, and who has built great relationships with the staff at all the schools, with our elementary reading specialists, and has just been a huge support as we've moved into year 3. This year, our focus was really on improving student writing. So we've had teachers engage in district-wide collaborative, like grade-level collaborative analysis of writing. We implemented common writing prompts being scored with common rubrics. We've been actively planning lessons and really planning for the instruction that will lead students to gain the skills required of those end-of-unit assessments. In terms of co-teaching at Salisbury, we have been, every year for the past 3 years, have been running a 2-day introduction to co-teaching workshop, followed up during the school year with instructional coaching, with feedback, with common planning time. I think the most important part of implementing a strong model for that, and that was built into the master schedule. So all of these things have shown some early evidence of change already. I'm going to focus on what we've seen in the iReady, through iReady, because we can also disaggregate iReady data based on income and special education. So we have seen, for students of low income at Salisbury Elementary, we've seen an increase in progress towards annual typical growth, and then also an increase in the number of students who have met their annual typical growth by mid-year. So we've seen that a shift in both of those areas between 23, 24, and then this mid-year. Similarly, we saw the same pattern at the middle school, where we had an increase in progress of students with low income toward their annual typical growth, and a higher percentage of students with low income meeting their annual typical growth by mid-year. Same pattern with students with disabilities at both of those schools too. And then we have some achievement to celebrate as well with students with disabilities. We have a significant increase of students with disabilities at Salisbury scoring at or above grade level this year as opposed to last year. And then an increase of 9 percentage points at the middle school for students with disabilities as well. So we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the achievement, and I always love it when we can kind of put a plan into place and follow through and implement something strongly and then actually see the results of it. The area where we haven't really seen growth is in mathematics at the secondary level, which I think but we haven't implemented anything yet. When this plan was proposed, we thought we'd be a little bit farther along in this process. I think that just affirms the need. The first step has to be to get high-quality instructional materials into the teacher's hands. So we actually had our lowest performing group decline in high school mathematics, so not making progress towards their targets, going in the other direction. So first step, get high quality instructional materials in there, and then give everybody the skills that they need to really connect their students to that curriculum.
Can I ask you a question? The math curriculum, the new math curriculum, is in the price. Does that include the publisher coming to support the teachers?
Some of it is, they have some, it's relative, I don't want to say it's relatively new. They've just updated this is a new online platform. So I had a meeting with them earlier today, and I was asking about professional learning, and they said, well, we're going to have this robust suite of like asynchronous, like introductory things. So potentially a special educator could access that and get an introduction, a walk through to the platform, an understanding of the basic pedagogy that's embedded in the curriculum without having to pay any money for that. That's like rolling out in June. So I haven't seen it yet. So all of those are part of it. But if we were to have somebody come out and work with us, that would not be included within that cost, but is always, professional development is a separate line. And I strongly feel it doesn't make sense to pay for materials if we're not going to support the implementation of it with PD. A lot of the PD that we can do, I will say, that Irene and Kelly, they spoke so well this evening about their work, but they are incredible instructional leaders and can offer that to their own departments. Like, a lot of the strength of an implementation will come from having somebody who's knowledgeable in the curriculum and a strong facilitator sit down and look at student work together and analyze benchmark assessment results and plan from that. And we have that expertise within our district too. So I've moved from, let's bring in the publishers, because these publishing companies are getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
And they're not always experts, and they're not always people who have even been in the classroom before who are coming to do the PD. I would much rather use our own experts.
I think that's the best way to do it, and those two individuals, I think, will be fantastic. But, so they're going to train, I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but they're going to train, and then people are going to come and see and make sure they're doing exactly the way.
So what I'm thinking for training is, because every teacher has had implementation training from Big Ideas, everyone who's going to be leading a class. We do need to train our special educators and our instructional assistants, and I think we could do that through a combination of these asynchronous introductory to the platform and then work with Kelly and Irene. I would like to bring some support out for evaluators, for administrators who are going to be, what we've done with some other areas is sort of developed look-fors. What are these key leverage points that we're looking for within classroom instruction? And how do we coach people up to get there? So I think it would be worth getting some professional development for Patrick, for Al, for me, and actually, I think Kelly, she works in a little bit of a coaching capacity at the middle school, that could be helpful for her too.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
So along those lines too, they had mentioned the ability to benchmark with the program itself. Is that included in the package, or it is included? I know that there's difficulties when we are testing like the middle schoolers with the iReady, that if they're beyond 8th grade level, that it's not really measuring the growth. Is it something that this new program would perhaps be a better option to use for middle school so that we can see how individuals are progressing? Because once they hit the ceiling, the growth numbers change because they're not able to test for it.
Yeah, potentially. I think we need to try it out and see. So it will be standards aligned. There are adaptive assessments built into it, like iReady, which will either adapt up or down based on student performance per question, but there are also standards-based assessments for each content level. So we have not, we're going to have to try them. I think I would hesitate to remove iReady without having gone through a cycle of at least with the pilot group of those. But I think it's in there, and one of the things I love about the online platforms is they're continually updating. It's going to be, they keep coming out with new features, and what they have available today in April there may be something different come September too. You're welcome. So I think we are seeing, in terms of this update, we're seeing growth in some areas. We have some things to work on still, and we have some plans to keep this moving forward in the next year. One of the big things that I am looking forward to is doing some training within the contractual day for co-teaching at Salisbury, so we can make sure that before our grant runs out on June 30th, that every educator at Salisbury Elementary has participated in the sort of first introduction to co-teaching training.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's only going to help our district having co-teachers. Anybody have any other questions?
Can I say kudos to Dr. Bates, because this is a Student Opportunity Act requirement. So this is the reporting that's required for all that new money we got through the Student Opportunity Act. So
How much was that? $66,000?
I mean, whopping $60,000 to $70,000 a year. So I appreciate the fact that Anna took it as an opportunity, genuinely took it as an opportunity to do more improvement planning and take a look at setting targets and identifying the work that we're doing and measuring progress. So thank you, Dr. Bates.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's really showing at Salisbury Elementary. Okay, the next item is the MASC resolutions and awards. Oh, this is much more important.
I was going to say, I didn't have a monthly report. It was just the personnel report.
Right.
So if there's anything, sorry, there was a couple things going on. Although I will say, can I just say one thing verbally? You all received an update, just in case you asked questions about this. You received an update, I believe, from MASC. I don't know if you get those, I see nods. And just to say this publicly about our compliance with Title VI, depending on the state, it rolled out differently. Some states, it rolled directly to superintendents. In Massachusetts, it went to the Department of Ed, and they took, in that email, have a pretty, Dr. Tutwiler, sorry, call him his nickname. Dr. Tutwiler did issue that a response today, beautifully written, strong response And so there is nothing we need to do, and I think just for you all to have received that and publicly, we haven't missed anything. We're not, there is no compliance and certification that I need to do on behalf of us as the LEA, again, the local education agency, which is Massachusetts' term, for each individual district. So just to make sure you're clear there, that we are in compliance with Title VI, so there is no justification for withholding of funds from at the federal level from the state or the districts.
I just have a question about the personnel. I don't think I've ever seen IEP implementation team.
What a great opportunity. Shannon, would you like to speak tonight?
We got some funding. We got a new IEP grant. We got it last year, and we also were able to get it this year. And so we have two representatives from each school coming to meet to discuss what is needed for implementing the new IEP. Things that aren't working, things that they feel they need, to discuss PD, and just feedback from the staff. Because, you know, they've done a lot, and they're working so hard on transitioning over to the new IEP, and there's a lot of feedback that Joelle and I are giving them, and we don't have that chance to sit down and say, is this working, is this not? So it's just, we're going to meet monthly, and our first meeting is actually tomorrow, and hopefully we'll go through till October. And we're using the grant to be able to pay them to be part of the team.
So this is just working together to tweak the IEPs?
So
process.
Yeah, to talk about what's working, what's not, what do you need? We need, you know, like when we were implementing it, there was a lot. It's not just transitioning over. There's a new way to write goals. There's a new way to write all the PLEPs. There's all different ways that the educators have now had to learn to write current level of performance and all that. So we went through a lot of training, and so now it's using the money to kind of get feedback from the staff. What's needed now? What do we need to do to move forward?
I know that you had, through CPAC, trying to get parents to come. Was there a huge can't get my words out, a huge amount of people who came to learn about the new
For when we
IEP.
did the training for the new IEP, we did 3 trainings, I think, and I would say we did 1 virtual. I would say probably at each training there was like 5 to 7 parents. So I think we went to 2 schools and then we did 1 virtual. But I will say the way we're rolling it out is that it's not rolled out until it's a student's annual or reevaluation. So the meetings are taking a little longer, but the parents are, you know, we're walking them through each page and each step of the IEP. So that's probably, you know, the best way for them to learn it when they're seeing it in their child's, what their child needs. So hopefully next year the meetings will be a little quicker, but.
No, but I appreciate that you're walking parents through it.
Yeah.
So just to make sure it's clear, this is about the new IEP. So this isn't just another training on an IEP, it's the full new.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to find my script here. The next item is the MASC resolutions and awards.
Do I do the school building update first?
I guess we'll do the,
You want to do the MASC thing and just get it out of the way?
yeah.
Okay.
So, it is with great honor that the Policy Committee submits a nomination for Narissa Wallen for the MASC Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of her extraordinary service to both her local community and the Triton Regional School Committee. Through her dedication, leadership, and tireless advocacy, Narissa has exemplified the highest ideals of public service. Her service to community, Narissa's commitment to the Triton community began long before her election to the school committee. A proud graduate of the Triton Regional School System, Narissa returned to Raleigh in 2012 with her husband and 2 sons, bringing with her a strong commitment to ensuring a better future for the next generation. Her deep understanding of challenges faced by the regional school district led her to co-found Support Mass Regional Schools. Narissa's active partnership in her local community is further demonstrated by her involvement in the Pine Grove School PTA. As a testament to her dedication to the district, she was honored with the Mass PTA Carol Woodbury Award for Leadership in 2019, and the Advocate of the Year Award in 2021, and the Commonwealth Heroines of Massachusetts 2024 she was nominated by Kristen Kastner, one of our state representatives. Service to the Triton Regional School Committee. Since her election to the school committee in May 2015, Narissa has demonstrated exceptional leadership, serving in various capacities that have helped shape the direction of the district. She is currently serving in her 3rd term and has played pivotal roles as chair of the committee, vice chair, and as a member of several key subcommittees, including the Finance Subcommittee, the Policy and Advocacy Subcommittee, and the Facilities Subcommittee. Narissa also served on the Pine Grove School Building Committee, overseeing the renovation project, further demonstrating her unwavering commitment to the growth and development of the district. Her attention to detail, extensive knowledge of the regional agreement, Chapter 70, and careful examination of the district's budget and finances have been invaluable. Narissa's strategic and thoughtful approach to decision-making has consistently prioritized the needs of students, staff, and the community. Exemplary characteristics of public service. Narissa's commitment to public service is defined by her unwavering dedication to understanding complex issues and advocating for meaningful change. She is regularly sought after by community members, local officials, state representatives, and fellow school boards around Massachusetts for her expertise and thoughtful insights. Narissa takes great care to ensure she is well-informed on regulations, programming, and proposed policies, understanding their potential impact on schools and the broader community. She is an advocate for transparency, collaboration, and improvement, always seeking input from others and offering thoughtful suggestions for how to make systems more effective. Her ability to explain the consequences of decisions and engage others in meaningful dialogue has built a strong foundation of trust and respect among her colleagues, community members, state legislators, and the broader educational community. Enduring legacy. Narissa's legacy of service to the Triton Regional School District and the broader community is a lasting testament to her dedication and passion for public education. Through her leadership, advocacy, and tireless work, Narissa has not only helped improve the district's operations and services, but has also empowered others to get involved and take action for the benefit of their schools and communities. Her work will continue to inspire future leaders and shape the educational landscape for years to come. In conclusion, Narissa Wallen is an outstanding candidate for the Lifetime Achievement Award. Her commitment to public service, her dedication to education, and her lifelong advocacy for the betterment of the community and its schools make her an exemplary role model and deserving recipient of this prestigious honor. So, can I have a motion to present this to MASC?
I'll make a motion to present this to MASC.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm going to abstain. Thank you, guys. That was unexpected. And honestly, like, whatever awards may have come before, that's the best of them. I mean, honestly, what more can you ask for than to be honored with by the people that you work with all the time, right? So, thank you.
Now,
Make someone else talk.
the school building committee update. Funding approval. The building committee met for the first time April 1st. I understand that they elected Matt Landers as their chair and Jim Kolb, one of the community members with construction, architect, or engineering experience as the vice chair. Now that there are offices, the SBC paperwork has been officially submitted to the MSBA. After discussion, the SBC sent the committee a recommendation for services as shown in the attachment, which the superintendent and Narissa will walk us through.
Want to talk? I'll talk. So the document that you have here is from MLP Design. That should be a familiar logo. Mike Perillo did our, I forget the exact name of the document, but when we submitted our statement of interest, we had him in to do a little bit of pre-work, came through, met with students and staff to talk about what's not working within the building, to kind of write that kind of the pitch for why we need a new building. This work, since that time that he did that for us, I guess it was in 2021, I believe, is late 21, is when he did the work. This takes, since that time that he did the work for us, he has become the kind of the go-to guy for designers in the area to do the visioning work. So he is not a designer. He is an educator by training. And so he used to work with Doran Whittier, who designed Pine Grove, and so he was involved in that process. He's now on his own, doing this work, strictly educational planning. So this isn't about being a person who understands the mechanics, the design, how you create the structure. It's about first setting that vision about what we want for our students so that we can then design a learning space around those needs and those goals. So this is exciting work, and in designers, whether, we've worked in the past with Kevin Provencher on this building, as well as Doran Whittier folks from Pine Grove, and both, as I've spoken with them, have said the more work you can do early before you get into that next phase, the better off we are. So again, timeline, we're hoping to get all of our deliverables done, including a vote by you on a budget for the feasibility study. The early discussions are around 1.7 million is for as a budget for the feasibility. We will come to you with a more refined number. The goal is to have information, all of our requirements in by the summer, so that we can get onto the October 29th, I believe it is, MSBA board meeting to be welcomed into Module 2. Module 2 is designer, is the team. So it's when we go out and hire our OPM, our owner's project manager, and the designer that will be with us for the duration of the project. But the first work in, once they are selected, is that feasibility study. Any work we do ahead of time isn't reimbursable. We know that all the dollars we spend from Module 2 and 3 in that design and schematic, we'll get 47.5% of that back. So any money we spend ahead of time is not reimbursable. However, it can cut down on the things we need to study and design. And when there's designers and OPMs, and we're talking about lots of options is hours, hours is dollars. And so, two of the things that have been on the table from the beginning of this process is we have a 7-8 middle school and 9 through 12 high school on they call it a coexisting, co-located on the same campus. We talked about the two options. One, bringing sixth grade over and studying a real middle school, 6, 7, 8, and a high school, or leave sixth grade where it is and make it a true integrated 7 through 12 campus with whatever structure that looks like. So with both of those options on the table, this is the type of work where we can start to tease out what we believe as a community we do and don't want. So if we can make some of those decisions before we get into when we're paying designers and OPMs to manage that process, we can save time and energy and dollars. So that's this work would be, I know Mike, he knows it's on the agenda tonight, and he's like, all right, so we'll talk at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we'll talk in tomorrow, assuming the committee authorizes this use of stabilization funds. and set this in motion right away. It will be a small kind of steering group that would start by doing some visits of some school sites and start to create that, and then do listening sessions that would bleed over the summer and into the fall. So as we're completing and checking all those boxes, we'll be doing this work concurrently, so that this work would be done according to this timetable next winter, when we're hopefully have an OPM and a designer in place, and we're starting to take those next steps. But this is all about the vision, and this is listening to everyone, right? This is both small group, starting to kind of synthesize the work, and then broadening it and hearing from the entire community, from students, from families, from folks in the community who were not involved in the schools. What is it that we're looking for our educational vision for our students?
Anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to sort of add in there, I think, I don't listen with the chair's ears at those meetings as much as I do for my own value, but I think Jim Kolb, who's the vice chair, who actually works as for an owner's project manager, so he does this on the day-to-day. He was very much in favor of this, and for my own personal opinion, I think that was a big thing for me that swayed me in this direction of thinking this is the right step. And one of the things that he said a couple of times was that, it's really important to know what you want, because the designers coming in, right, you have these companies that are coming in that have their own experiences, and they're bringing them to the table, and their input is, and the way that they try to guide you is going to be influenced by that history that they have. And what we need to do is find what's right for us and come in with sort of an open mind and hear everyone to make sure that we're going in the right direction and come out with sort of the best project that we can get to fit for a viable price point. And I think that for me was the piece that really pushed me to the point of saying, like, I think this is the right thing to do. I don't love the idea of spending money that's not reimbursable or spending it upfront really in front of the project. But I think, from that perspective, I think it's worth it to get out ahead of making those contractual hires, the contracts to bring those folks on board, and just sort of do it with Mike Perillo's guidance, right? But it's us that's figuring this out to start out with. So, and he also said, I can't remember what the numbers he said, but he believed that it could cut months off of our time.
I was going to say, he said 2 to 3 months,
Yeah.
which 2 to 3 months of an OPM and a designer is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So.
It's not small. So financially, too, I think it's a good.
And I will say that, so this is all going towards developing, in MSBA speak, it's called the education program. So it is what drives everything. Once we develop the education program, it's what we then test everything against. Our design enrollment, when we are talking about the different options, design, or, knock down, rebuild, brand new location, obviously we're not going to go there. In renovation, all those options are measured against this, as well as budgets. So this is important pre-work for something that becomes the driving force for the rest of this project. And I think early on in the process, Paul, we were talking about this, right? Do we have educators involved, right? And so there's a lot of designs out there that are gorgeous. And maybe they worked for another city or a town. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they're just gorgeous and they don't work for an educational institution. But either way, we have to know what works for us. And that's what this is starting to do.
Anybody have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the appropriation of $29,000 from the district stabilization account for the purpose of procuring a contract with MLP Integrated Designs for preliminary planning and visioning work for the middle high school project.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next is the policy review cycle, section F. The superintendent and Paul Goldner, the Chair of the Policy and Advocacy Subcommittee, are going to go through the proposed changes to Section F.
There are really not very many changes that we made in Section F of the policy manual. If you go through the redlining, it's really very minimal and mostly just language updates. Anything, yeah.
Other than to say this completes you're doing 3 policies a year. This is your 3rd policy for the year, so this is a first reading. Second reading of this in May, and well done.
So we are looking for a motion to approve edits to the policy manual as presented as a first reading.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the CREST Articles of Agreement. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent, who is Triton's representative on the CREST Collaborative Board.
So just a quick update. You're going to be hearing about collaboratives more because through the state level oversight, as they're doing their program reviews, if you will, they've been, again, we're members of North Shore Consortium as well as CREST, and both of them have heard that they need to be making sure and certifying that superintendents or board members, both of them happen to be all superintendents, or mostly superintendents, are reporting back to the school committees to make sure the school committees are aware. So we'll have the budgets at the May meeting, and so I believe it's a quarterly report. You're going to be hearing more just updates, not extensive, just kind of here's where they're at, here's the budget, or here's the annual reports. But this is actually, as we were, as a board, looking at, I was going to call member rates versus non-member rates. The previous language capped what the non-member rates could be. As a board, we felt like it was important. There's a lot of student service in CREST that come from New Hampshire, Arata District, and we wanted the ability to adjust our tuition rates so that the consortium was competitive with other schools while making sure that we can keep member rates more affordable, and more than still a much more affordable option. So this was an exercise where Bob Jokela, the current director, reached out to DESE on language of how they would do that. And of course, similar to our experience when we asked DESE about, hey, can we make these two small changes to the regional agreement? And they come back with lots of changes you should make. So the majority of these changes are updating, similar to our last regional agreement update, where we were updating to make sure we're complying with laws. The major substantive update is basically removing the cap and allowing us to set member rates at what we determine as a board and as an organization makes the most sense. So this has to be approved by member board, CREST member districts with you as the appropriating authority.
Anybody have any questions?
So all these changes in here, though, are being approved as part of this process, right?
Correct.
It's not just that one.
So it started with just that, and then similar to our regional agreement, DESE said you should change all these things.
Yeah.
To be
That's
in
what I would-
2025. So yes.
All right. This is maybe a Dave question. Is there a cap on the percentage of the operating budget that can sit in the capital fund or any fund, like there is for
For us or for CREST?
the collaborative? Yeah. I'm just curious because it says if you have over 25% in essentially in, I'm assuming it's like the collaborative's excess and deficiency of the operating that you can then deposit it into OPEB or the capital fund. I'm just wondering if there's a cap on how much you could divert funding. OPEB, obviously, you have a number sort of that you're headed towards.
I don't know if you know that collaboratives are their own, right, their own entity. The surplus is similar to free cash certified for a city or town.
Yeah.
If it's, as you said, more than 25%, it has to be returned to member districts.
Or they can, according to this, it says they can choose to deposit it into one of either their OPEB fund
Correct.
or into their capital fund.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, like, how much capital can you build up?
So I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But it's the board that decides that.
Okay.
So I can tell you.
It would be your,
Right? Similar to why we
Okay.
want to be able to raise the rates.
Yeah.
Collaboratives are different in that they operate like a business, right? They literally have to have, it's about profit and loss. It's not about assessing member towns. And so they have a different mindset. But the discussions we've been having with our collaboratives, and this is kind of the North Shore superintendents, a lot of us are on both North Shore and Crest, is making sure that they're competitive. But also, if we're able to build in-district programs, we've been talking about, we have a student tuitioning into our 18 to 22 program. So there's this balance of the consortiums and collaboratives are getting nearly as expensive as other private placements. And how can we kind of get back to where we were, which is collaboratives started as kind of districts working together, operating schools, rooms, programs within the schools. Now most collaboratives have overhead, purchased buildings, and it's becoming its own private organization. And how do we kind of morph that to make sure that this is still about what works for the member districts? So that's what this has been about, the push. So I will get you an answer, but it will be capped because all of us are saying, hey, look, we don't have those funds. We need to talk about
Right.
how we put that back in, reduce tuitions.
Okay, that is fair, I appreciate that. And my other question was, it talks about if a district decides to leave the collaborative, that they're responsible for certain items based on the last year's that they had students enrolled there, the number of students. I don't know how much history there is of that happening, but when districts leave, do they usually phase out? Is this a situation, I guess my question is, right, is this a situation where like they're seeing better deals elsewhere and they're going from, 40 students 3 years ago to 15 students last year to 5 students this year, and then they're out, and it's based on the 5 students that they'd be liable for debts and other responsibilities? Or is it a situation where they go literally from a 40 average, which is where they've been for the last 10 years, to nothing, and it's the 40?
So when we left, what was it? It was GLEC, then it was, what was Crest before it was Crest? It was Greater Lawrence Education. Yeah, it was GLEC. We walked away from it. We were members when it was Greater Newburyport, then it was Greater Lawrence, and we stepped away with no penalty. It changed, new leadership, reorganized, better version of themselves. We joined again. So there isn't a set answer to that, but the way it's written, if you just phase out and we stop using them for a couple years and we're like, we don't want to be a member anymore, there's no net impact. So the more likely is, over time, if the programs aren't working, right, in Shannon's world, we're not going to be recommending students to those programs, and then there's no impact to us if we're not sending kids to the program anymore.
I'm just wondering for the districts that are left in, if that's a negative for them, because if you're saying the last year of their students is what a share of any capital debt is based on, and I'm assuming OPEB would be part of that. If they're essentially leaving the burden of the liabilities more on the remaining districts, then if you looked at, say, the last 5 years average of their use, or the students that they sent there, use, quote unquote.
So the first answer is yes, it definitely burdens the others.
Okay.
I believe this is MOEC and DESE's language
Okay.
that they want to see as the kind of standard similar to a regional where we're all in,
Yep.
right, as a more of a 3 towns, deciding for all educational programming. I can check on that, but I believe that was standard DESE language.
Okay.
I will say most collaboratives, more districts are trying to join.
Okay.
I know for North Shore, there were 3 other districts that aren't part of North Shore that tried to join, and we just said no.
Okay.
Not because we're mean, but just because we need to get our own stuff figured out before we
Yeah.
expand to more because of those complicated reasons.
Okay, I just saw the thing that it dissolves, that if it goes down to 2, right? And I'm just thinking, like, what if you're the last 2 left holding the bag, right? That's not a good situation to be in if everybody else has sort of phased their way out, and all of a sudden you have all this liability, and it's 2 districts or 3 districts that are still there.
Absolutely.
So to follow Narissa's question, you said DESI wants that language in there, but are they prohibiting us from saying that we want a phase-out period?
I don't have that
Or a
answer. I will
5-year,
get that
like
answer.
like a bigger,
Yep. I believe this is their recommended language. I'm very confident it was their recommended language. I don't know if it's a recommendation or a requirement. Yeah, so I can get that answer.
a restriction that we can't make it like over a period of time, like if you're like your last 5 years
Correct.
of enrollment. Like, I
Yep.
mean, if it's a restriction, obviously.
Yep. Yeah, so my guess is this is going to committees, I always forget this, it's 20 districts in North Shore, and then 13, 12 for Crest. So it's going out as drafted for approval. I don't know that there's an opportunity, if the 2/3 of other school committees approve this as is, there isn't an opportunity to amend that. So I guess you all can vote accordingly. If we could also try and hold off. I think it has to happen time-wise. It has to happen. I would say you should take a vote either way tonight, even if you're voting to say you don't like it because of that. Yeah. Because time-wise, they need we had to do 2 separate board votes, and then it's coming back so that it can be in place for next year, because we want the tuition rates higher. For non-members.
And just a question, if the programs weren't, I know it was a hypothetical, but if the programs weren't what we needed them to be, couldn't you talk to them about making a program?
Oh, yeah, we get to make the decision. Like, similar to you guiding the direction of the district, we get to make that decision with this, as the superintendents for the board.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we want to make a motion? Because it's a second and final reading. First reading and a second and final.
No, that's their board.
Oh.
We're only voting once. The way that it reads is to approve the amendments to the Crest Collaborative's Articles of Agreement as approved by Crest's Board of Directors on March 12, 2025 as a first reading, and March 26,
see.
2025 as a second and final reading. So those were their 2 votes
Okay.
as a first and a second and final. We only take 1 vote, or in
Correct.
theory, we only take 1 vote.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you want to vote. I'm just not sure that, I think it's a good thing, right, to have those variable rates. I'm personally not comfortable moving this forward. I'll make a motion if you guys want, so we can get it to a vote, but
What happens if we
So-
don't vote yes? Then what?
So it depends on what other school committees do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just,
Yeah, so it could fail, and then it fails, if it's not the 2/3 required, then if 2/3 of others do approve it, then it would happen
it just
regardless of
happens
how you
anyway.
vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
do we want a motion?
Do we want a motion, or do we want to wait till we get that information?
I mean, I guess the power of taking a motion, right, is Brian, as our representative, then can go and say, my committee voted this down because, right, rather than just there were concerns and these are the concerns.
So you're proposing a motion to vote it? No, I'm just saying, so you
I'm
can
looking at
vote this
Brian.
motion?
What is your recommendation?
Yeah, so they are, they need this by April 30th in that letter from Bob Jokela. So I think you should take some action. I think it's helpful if there's, maybe even note that in the motion, the 2 questions that need to be answered in order to approve it. Very simply, I certainly have information that I can carry back as to why, but I think it's helpful to take a vote. Yeah, because you're not going to have another opportunity until May 21st.
So the two questions that you have,
The first one, I mean, I guess, was more informational than it was,
Okay.
you know, that's not something that would cause me. It was more of a question than it was to say, you know, I wouldn't be interested in this language. This is where I really have some concerns about what it could do to us, because in that GLEC situation, like, what happens, right? When everybody starts to go and,
what happens when you're the last one standing?
yeah, right? And everybody else is paying based on, it could be a relatively small number of students in their final year before they decide to leave.
So we can make a motion to approve with waiting on that question, right?
I think, I would say if you want to wait before you vote, there's no vote. It's a vote up or down as written, right? So it's similar to if how we send it to the towns. With the budget, the towns can vote it up or down. I think because we as a board voted this and did first and second reading, committees can vote it up or down and then bring language back as to why not, and then we can reconsider if there's time or if it passes or doesn't pass. So
then we'll make a motion to
We're going to
not,
make the motion, and then you can just vote it up or down. That's what's going. So we can't.
however you want to make the motion. I don't, like, yes, I don't believe you can amend it.
But I think we can say, like, have a motion to not approve the amendments to the Crest Collaborative's Articles of Agreement as approved by Crest Board of Directors on March 12, 2025 as a first reading, and March 26, 2025 as a second and final reading, due to concerns about the final sentence in section XF, or 10F it would be, I guess, regarding the number of students enrolled in the collaborative during the last year of membership being used to determine the district's ongoing share of any debts, claims, demands, or judgments against the collaborative.
I'll second.
Longest motion ever.
any discussion? All those in favor?
So that was an affirmed vote to not approve it. Double negative. Thank you.
Paul, were you an abstain?
Yeah, I was in favor. No, I was just
He
trying
was-
to count.
Oh, okay.
Type
And
and
type.
vote at the same time.
Okay, the next item is policy and advocacy, Paul Goldner.
We met earlier today, primarily considering, you may have recently seen the template that went out to the community through Parent Square for contacting state legislators, continuing that work. That was primarily around the budget. We'll be trying to get another template out for state legislation that would positively impact Triton to the community later in this month. Our next meeting will be May 21st at 5:30.
Thank you, Paul. Personnel and negotiations. Brian?
We have not met in the last month, and I don't think we have a scheduled meeting unless you have one that you.
So we're going to have executive session tonight
And
for the
that's
PEC work, and then I would say, hopefully very close to being able to get you together to finalize a AFSCME custodial unit contract. Hopefully.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Nice job.
Finance, Paul Mayette.
We met on the 27th. I think my updates have generally been about the cash remaining, and Brian mentioned earlier that we are currently overspent and looking for anything that is currently encumbered that might be able to be pulled back or re-examined. We meet again on May 1st.
Thank you, Paul. The next item is executive session. The committee is going to enter executive session for the purpose of planning for negotiations with union personnel, specifically the Public Employee Committee, to return to open session. Can I have a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of planning for negotiations with union personnel, specifically the Public Employee Committee, to return to open session?
I'll make the motion to enter executive session for the purpose of planning for negotiations with union personnel, specifically the Public Employee Committee, to return to open session.
Can we have a roll call vote? Erin?
I'll second it first, and then I'll say yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Kelly? Caitlin? Paul Goldner?
Yes.
Narissa?
Yes.
Paul Mayette?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. A new contract has been agreed with the Public Employee Committee on healthcare benefits for 2025 through 2028. Primary differences in the new agreement include plan design changes for the base at HMO and the PPO plans that lower the rate increase from 16.21% to 11.48%. A shift in the district and member share premium costs on dental insurance from 70/30 to 50/50, and changes in 2026 and 2027 that will shift the district and member share premium costs for MedX retirement from the 70/30 to 65/35. I want to thank the members of the PEC committee, Triton's employee unions, the Personnel and Negotiation Subcommittee, Christine Nealand as the town governance representative, and district administration for their diligent work on the lengthy negotiation. Can I please have a motion to approve the new contract?
I'll make a motion to approve the Public Employee Committee Agreement for 2025 to 2028 as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Can I have a motion for adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Have a nice evening.